You get the news that you've earned a raise. Maybe it's a few $1,000s, maybe it's a big jump. And there's this warm little rush of feeling. You earned it, you deserve it. And almost without thinking, your mind starts spending it. A nicer car, a bigger house, nicer vacations, eating out more. It feels like the natural reward for years of hard work. And I want to tell you today, as gently and as firmly as I can, if you're past 45, that instinct to let a raise flow straight into your lifestyle may be one of the most expensive habits of your entire financial life. Because a raise after 45 is not just extra spending money, it is a rare, powerful, time-limited opportunity, maybe the single best one you have left, to completely change how your retirement turns out. And most people spend it without ever realizing what they gave up. So today I'm going to show you the smartest thing to do with a raise after 45, and I'll tell you right now, it is not spend it. I'm going to show you exactly why this window is so uniquely valuable, and then I'm going to give you a clear, ranked plan, the specific order to actually put that money to work, from the very first dollar to the last. And I'm going to show you the real math, because when you see what a single raise can become, and what it cost you to spend it instead, I don't think you'll look at your next one the same way again. Let me set up the whole idea with two neighbors. Call them Steve and Dave. Same age, 50, same job, same salary, and this year they both get the exact same $10,000 raise. Steve does what most people do. He lets it flow into his life. A nicer truck, a few more dinners out, an upgraded cable package. It feels great. Dave does something different. He takes that entire raise and before it ever hits his checking account, sends it straight into his retirement. Same two men, same raise. We're going to follow them to 65, and the gap between where they end up is going to be staggering. Let's build it. First, let me explain why a raise after 45 is so special. Why this particular window matters more than a raise at 25 ever did. There are 3 reasons, and they all point the same direction. The first reason is compounding still has time to work, but the clock is running. When you invest money, it grows, and then the growth grows, and that snowball effect is the most powerful force in building wealth. A raise you save at 45 still has around 20 years to compound before a typical retirement. Enough time for that snowball to get truly large. Wait until 60 and it's only got a few years, and the snowball never gets rolling. So 45 to 55 is a sweet spot. You finally have the higher income to save real money, and you still have enough time for that money to multiply. It is the last stretch where both of those things are true at once. The second reason is that these are almost certainly your peak earning years. Most people earn the most they'll ever earn in their late 40s and 50s. And often, at the very same time, some of life's biggest expenses are finally winding down. The kids are becoming independent. The mortgage is further along. So this is the window where the gap between what you earn and what you truly need to spend is the widest it will ever be. That gap is pure opportunity, and a raise widens it further. If you don't capture it now, you may never have a better chance. And the third reason is the most important, and it's the one nobody talks about. After 50, the government hands you special permission to save dramatically more, and it's designed for exactly this moment. There are rules, I'll get to the specifics in a minute, that let people over 50, and especially people in their early 60s, pour far more into their retirement accounts than younger workers are allowed to. It's called catch-up contributions, and it exists precisely because lawmakers know this is the make-or-break decade. A raise in your 50s is the perfect fuel for those catch-up rules. The door is open widest right when you most need to walk through it. So those are the 3 reasons this window is precious. Time to compound, peak income, and special permission to save more. Now let me show you the enemy, the thing that steals all of it, because it's so sneaky that most people never even see it happen. It's called lifestyle inflation, or lifestyle creep. Here's how it works. Every time your income rises, your spending rises to match it, almost on its own. The raise comes in, and within a few months, the nicer car and the bigger house and the fancier habits have absorbed it completely, and you're living paycheck to paycheck again, just at a higher level. You don't feel richer. You just have more expensive problems. Let me make it concrete, because this is how it actually happens. The raise comes in, and you think, I've earned a nicer car. So you trade up, and now instead of a paid-off sedan, you've got a $700 a month payment. That payment doesn't go away next year. It's there for 5 or 6 years, and when it ends, you trade up again, because that's just your lifestyle now. One decision made in a happy moment became a permanent line in your budget. Multiply that across the house, the vacations, the subscriptions, the dinners, and you can see how an entire raise vanishes into fixed costs. You'll be paying long after the good feeling wore off, and long after you can even remember what you upgraded to. And here's the trap that makes it so dangerous. Lifestyle inflation is almost impossible to reverse. It's easy to grow into a nicer lifestyle and painfully hard to shrink back down. So every raise you absorb into your life doesn't just cost you that money once. It locks in a permanently higher cost of living that follows you all the way into retirement. Now let me show you why that's a double disaster, because this is the insight I most want you to carry away from today. When you spend a raise instead of saving it, you get hit twice. The first hit is obvious. You didn't save that money, so you lose all the growth it could have become. But the second hit is the one people miss, and it's brutal. By permanently raising your lifestyle, you've also permanently raised the amount you need to fund in retirement. Remember the rule we talk about on this channel. To safely produce income in retirement, you need roughly 25 times your annual spending saved up. So if a raise permanently adds $10,000 a year to your lifestyle, you now need an extra $250,000 in your nest egg just to maintain that new lifestyle after you stop working. Sit with that. Spending a $10,000 raise doesn't just cost you the $10,000. It pushes your retirement finish line back by $250,000, while also failing to save the money that would have helped you reach it. You dug the hole deeper and threw away the shovel at the same time. That is the true hidden price of letting a raise become a lifestyle. All right, now let me show you the other path, Dave's path, with the real numbers, because this is where it gets exciting. Say Dave at 50 takes his $10,000 raise and invests it every year until 65. 15 years. At a reasonable average return, that single redirected raise grows to about $250,000 from one raise. And if he'd started at 45, with 20 years to compound, that same $10,000 a year becomes over $400,000. $400,000 from a raise that his neighbor Steve turned into a truck he doesn't even remember buying by the time he retires. Now put the two neighbors side by side at 65. Steve absorbed his raise into his lifestyle. He saved nothing extra, and he needs $250,000 more in savings to sustain the bigger life he built. Savings he doesn't have. Dave banked his raise. He's sitting on hundreds of thousands of extra dollars, and because he never inflated his lifestyle, he needs less to retire on, not more. Same job, same salary, same raise. A difference of well over $500,000 in retirement security, created entirely by what they did in the moment the raise arrived. That is the whole ballgame, decided by a single decision most people make on autopilot. And the number changes depending on when you start. So let me give you the whole picture because it tells you something important. If Dave banks that $10,000 raise starting at 45, with 20 years to grow, it becomes about $410,000 by 65. Start the same raise at 50 with 15 years, and it's about $250,000. Start at 55 with 10 years, and it's still about $140,000. Notice two things. First, even starting at 55, even with just 10 years left, one redirected raise is still worth well over $100,000. It is never too late for this to matter. But second, look at how much you lose by waiting. The difference between starting at 45 and starting at 55 is nearly $300,000 from the exact same raise. That's the cost of every year you let a raise slip into your lifestyle instead of your future. The lesson isn't panic, it's urgency. The best day to start giving your raises to your future self was your last raise. The second best day is your next. 1. So the smartest thing to do with a raise after 45 is simple to say, don't let it touch your lifestyle. Give it to your future self instead. But save it is too vague to act on. So let me give you the actual ranked order, exactly where each dollar of that raise should go, from first to last. Think of it as pouring the raise into a series of buckets, in order, and only moving to the next once the one before it is full. Bucket 1, and this comes before everything else. Capture your full employer match. If your workplace retirement plan offers to match your contributions, Say they add 50 cents or a dollar for every dollar you put in, up to some percentage of your salary, then the very first thing your raise should do is make sure you're contributing enough to grab every penny of that match. Because that match is free money. It's an instant, guaranteed 100% return, and there is nothing else on this list that can beat it. If you're leaving any match on the table, your raise's first job is to go capture it. On a typical salary, a full match can be several $1,000s a year of free money. Picture a 5% match on an $80,000 salary. That's $4,000 a year the company simply hands you for participating. Left to grow for 20 years, that match alone becomes more than $160,000. It is the best deal in all of personal finance, and roughly a quarter of workers fail to grab all of it. Your raise's very first job is to make sure you're not one of them. Never leave that money sitting there. Bucket 2. Wipe out any high-interest debt, especially credit cards. If you're carrying a balance on a card charging 20+% interest, paying that off is one of the best uses of money that exists. Why? Because paying off a card that charges you 22% is the exact same thing as earning a guaranteed 22% return, tax-free, and no safe investment on earth reliably does that. So if you've got expensive debt, your raise, right after grabbing the match, should go hunt it down and kill it. You cannot build a secure retirement on top of a pile of high-interest debt. It has to go first. Bucket 3, and this is where the magic of this age really lives. Max out your catch-up contributions. This is the special permission I mentioned, and here's what it actually looks like in 2026. A worker under 50 can put up to $24,500 into their 401k. But once you turn 50, you're allowed an extra $8,000 on top, bringing you to $32,500. And here's the part that stuns people. If you're between 60 and 63, there's a special super catch-up that lets you add over $11,000 extra, pushing your limit to nearly $36,000 in a single year. On top of that, you can put $7,500 into an IRA, plus another $1,100 if you're over 50. This is the government practically begging you to shovel money into your retirement in these final working years. And a raise is the perfect thing to shovel. If your raise lets you go from contributing a little to maxing out these catch-up limits, you are using this window exactly the way it was designed to be used. And if you're sitting there thinking you're behind, that you didn't save enough in your 30s and 40s, this is your redemption window, and it's more powerful than you think. Between the catch-up rules and a couple of good raises, a 50-something who gets serious can pour $35,000 a year into retirement accounts, and with an employer match on top, build a very meaningful nest egg in the final stretch, even starting from behind. Those last 10 to 15 working years with the house nearly paid off, the kids gone, your income at its peak, and these supersized limits open can be the single most productive saving decade of your entire life. A raise is the fuel that makes that sprint possible. Don't waste it grieving the years you missed. Pour it into the years you have left. Bucket 4. The health savings account if you're eligible for one through a high-deductible health plan. This is one of the most underrated accounts in existence because it's triple tax advantaged. The money goes in tax-free, grows tax-free, and comes out tax-free when used for medical costs. And since healthcare is one of the biggest expenses you'll face in retirement, building up an HSA over the years is like prepaying your future medical bills with untaxed dollars. In 2026, you can put in $4,400 as an individual or $8,750 for a family, plus $1,000 more if you're 55 or older. A raise directed here does double duty, a tax break now, and a medical war chest later. And Bucket 5, once those tax-advantaged buckets are full, attack the mortgage and build your bridge to a debt-free retirement. We've talked on this channel about how powerful it is to walk into retirement with no mortgage payment. A raise in your final working decade aimed at the mortgage principal can knock years off your loan and get you to the finish line owing nothing, which, remember, also lowers the amount you need saved. And anything beyond that can go into a regular brokerage account to keep growing. The point is the order: match first, then high-interest debt, then catch-up retirement accounts, then the HSA, then the mortgage and beyond. One more question that comes up constantly: should your raise go into the pre-tax bucket or the Roth bucket? Here's the simple way to think about it. Pre-tax, or traditional, gives you a tax break today. The contribution lowers this year's taxable income, but you'll pay tax on it when you withdraw it in retirement. Roth is the reverse. No break today, you pay the tax now, but it grows and comes out completely tax-free later. The rough rule of thumb: if you expect to be in a lower tax bracket in retirement than you are now, lean pre-tax and take the break while your rate is high. If you expect a similar or higher bracket later, or you just love the certainty of tax-free money down the road, lean Roth. Many people do some of each to give themselves flexibility. And note that new 2026 rule I mentioned. If you're a higher earner, your catch-up contributions are now required to go into the Roth bucket anyway, so the choice may be made for you. Either way, the account still gets funded by your raise. This is just about which tax basket it lands in. Now, let me give you the single most powerful technique for actually pulling this off, because knowing where the money should go means nothing if it slips through your fingers first. The technique is this: automate the raise before you ever see it. The reason lifestyle inflation wins is that the raise lands in your checking account, feels like yours, and gets spent before you make a conscious choice. So take the choice out of it. The moment a raise takes effect, go to payroll and increase your 401k contribution by that amount, or set up an automatic transfer that sweeps it into savings the day you're paid. If the money never touches your checking account, you never adjust to it, you never miss it, and lifestyle creep never gets its hooks in. You keep living exactly the life you were happily living the month before, and your future self gets richer every year. Pay your future self first, automatically, and the whole battle is won before it starts. And here's how to actually do it, in about 10 minutes, so it doesn't stay a good intention. The week your raise takes effect, log into your retirement plan or call your HR or payroll department and increase your contribution percentage so that the new raise amount is captured before it's ever deposited to you. If your raise was a certain number of dollars, figure out what percentage of your pay that is and bump your contribution up by that much. If you've already maxed your 401k, set up an automatic transfer from checking to an IRA or brokerage account, time for payday, for that same amount. Then don't touch it. That's the whole trick. One 10-minute task, done once, that turns every future paycheck into retirement savings without you ever having to feel the sacrifice again. Let me add a quick word on a related windfall, because people ask, what about a one-time bonus, or an inheritance, or the proceeds from selling something? The same principle applies, but a bonus is actually easier to handle than a raise. And here's the subtle reason why. A recurring raise is the dangerous one, because it enters your monthly baseline and lifestyle creep grabs it month after month, forever. A one-time bonus never entered your baseline. You were living fine without it. So banking the whole thing costs you nothing you were counting on. So the rule for any windfall is even simpler. You were living happily before it arrived, so send it straight into the buckets we just discussed, and keep living exactly as you were. The best time to save a bonus is the day before it feels normal. Let me also name the 4 mistakes I see people make with a raise after 45, because avoiding them is most of the win. Mistake 1: letting the raise hit your checking account first, so it's spent before you decide, always intercepted at payroll. Mistake 2: inflating the big fixed costs, the house and the car, because those are the ones you can't easily reverse. A fancier dinner is recoverable. A bigger mortgage is not. Mistake 3: leaving employer match on the table while you send the raise somewhere else. The match is always first. And mistake 4: telling yourself you'll start saving raises next time, year after year, until the window closes. Steer around those 4, and you've captured the opportunity. Now let me help you find your move, because it depends on where you stand. If you're carrying high-interest credit card debt, your raise's job is to kill that first, before anything else. That's your guaranteed 20% plus return. If you're debt-free but not getting your full employer match, go capture every dollar of that free money this week. If you've got the match and no bad debt, pour the raise into those catch-up contributions in the HSA. That's the sweet spot. And if you're in your final few working years with a mortgage still hanging on, split the raise between maxing your catch-up accounts and knocking down that mortgage so you cross into retirement, owing nothing. Find yourself in one of those, and you know exactly where your next raise should go. And a couple of honest caveats. The contribution limits I gave you are the specific 2026 numbers, and they change a bit every year, so check the current figures when it's your turn. There's also a new rule for 2026 worth knowing. If you're a higher earner, over about $150,000 in wages last year, your catch-up contributions now have to go into a Roth, meaning you pay the tax now rather than later. That's not bad, it's just different, and it's worth understanding. And if your situation is complex, a lot of debt, a pension, questions about Roth versus traditional, this is a great thing to run past a fee-only financial advisor, one who charges for their time and doesn't sell products, to get the order exactly right for you. So let me bring it home. We started with that warm little rush. The raise arrives, and your mind starts spending it. That instinct is completely human. And before 45, maybe it doesn't cost you too dearly, because there's still time. But after 45, that same instinct meets a closing window, and the price of following it climbs steeply. Because you're not really choosing between a nicer truck and a boring savings account. You're choosing between Steve and Dave, between a raise that becomes a fading memory and a raise that becomes $400,000 and a secure retirement, between digging your retirement hole deeper and filling it in for good. Here's what I'd like you to do. You may not have a raise this exact moment, but you will, or you'll get a bonus, or some extra money will come your way. And when it does, before you spend $1 of it, I want you to hear this video. Go to payroll or your retirement account that same week and direct it match first, then any nasty debt, then those catch-up contributions, before it ever reaches your checking account. Let your lifestyle stay exactly where it is, happy and familiar, and let the raise go straight to work for the person you'll be at 65. That person is counting on the decisions you make right now. In these peak years with this money, give them the raise. It may be the smartest financial move you have left to make, and it's sitting right there in your next paycheck, waiting for you to decide who gets it. The you of today, or the you who has to live for 30 years on whatever the you of today managed to keep.